Hello, buddy, and welcome to Electric City Sentai Denzicaster, right here on Geek Carolina, your weekly walk through the wonderful world of Tokusatsu. I'm your host, Mike, and once again, I am joined by
Joe Gibkins' homeboy, Josh. Woot woot! Good to be back.
It's him.
It's not good to be back, Internet?
I'd say change it up a little bit this week, Mike.
Oh, okay. So, folks, this week, we're going to save this part here for the end of the episode. We're going to wind up doing a taste test during this episode. I got, during a recent trip to an Asian market, I picked up some Japanese-style peanut mochi. So we're going to see what we think of this at the end of the episode. But before that, this is a rare treat for me to look at, talk about, and we'll review a Tokusatsu show that A, I've never seen any of before today, realistically. And B, is actually one of the most historic and landmark shows in all of Tokusatsu. It was a game changer, literally, when it came out in 1978. Today we are looking at the first two episodes of Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yay. Wow. Anyway.
That's the theme song.
This particular show, which you will often see the title written out, Supida-Man, basically the way it would be pronounced in Japanese.
Supida-Man.
Supida-Man. But Spider-Man is what we're taking a look at today. The show originally debuts in 1978. It is the year between Super Sentai series. When the Super Sentai series first begins, we now recognize that it begins in 1975 with Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger. But Go Ranger, which ran through 75 and 76, and then Jacker Dengektai, which comes out in 1977, the first two Sentai series. After those came Spider-Man in 1978, and then in 1979 you get Battle Fever J, which for many, many years Battle Fever J was actually considered the first Super Sentai show, with the difference between a Sentai and a Super Sentai being a giant robot. That if you didn't have a giant robot, you were not a Super Sentai, you were just a Sentai. And basically when they figured out that they could milk an anniversary year earlier if they counted back to Go Ranger in 75, they did. And so Go Ranger and Jacker were retroactively added to the Super Sentai series. Spider-Man is a landmark series for a number of reasons. It is the first time in a Tokusatsu show that our hero faces the monster first at human size and then at giant size. So this is the first show with a make my monster grow moment. This is also the first time that when the human-sized hero has to do battle with the monster who has suddenly grown giant, he has to summon a giant robot to do it. This was part of a 3-year licensing agreement between Marvel Comics and Toei. Toei got the rights to use the Marvel characters pretty much as they saw fit, whereas Marvel wound up getting the rights to a number of giant robots that made up a number of comic book series for Marvel around the same time. So it's really interesting. I was doing a little reading up on Spider-Man as we were watching, and one of the things that I found very interesting, and it's apparent when you watch the episodes, they were scared in Japan that Spider-Man would not get over in its base form, and they thought that a giant robot gimmick would be needed to help it become a more identifiable Japanese hero. And they were basically given leave, although there were many at Marvel Comics that had reservations about it, they were given leave to take whatever liberties they deemed necessary in order to make this show a success. And if you are a Spider-Man purist, they took liberties. So, the first two episodes are what we watched today. If you want synopses, Google that. But the long story short is, there was a planet called Spider. Dude from Planet Spider gets chased to Earth.
Yep, Garia,
who viewers of Denzi Blitz, who saw me talk about Space Sheriff Gavin and now Scheider, he would later go on to be Commander Quone in the Space Sheriff's trilogy. Comes to Earth, winds up in a cave for 400 years, has the world's worst telepathy because it will only zero in on one person.
One person in all the universe.
Yes, and it took him 400 years to find the guy. So his telepathy would only work on someone that was not yet born when he crashed. But that telepathy leads Tatsuya, a young motorcyclist and motorcycle racer, to him because all early tokusatsu heroes were motorcycle racers. And this kid who falls in and has previously been stabbed is going to die from his wounds from his initial encounter with the Iron Cross Army if he is not somehow saved, and so he is with the spider extract, which gives him numerous spider powers, and he swears vengeance on behalf of the man that saved his life and his own father, who died earlier due to his archaeological digs, and becomes the emissary of hell, Spider-Man.
So yes, this dude's dad is basically the Uncle Ben of this story.
Correct.
However, his dying words were not "with great power comes responsibility." Is "I want you to kill the hell out of the things that killed me."
Basically, yes.
He's relatable.
It's relatable.
With great power comes great vengeance in this version of Spider-Man. First impressions of the Tokusatsu Spider-Man.
Well, one thought I said when we were watching this is that I thought that, man, if I was a kid in the 70s, I would have straight up loved this show.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, oh my god, he's clinging to buildings, and he's fighting minions, and there's giant robots, and he's swinging around. But, like I said, obviously dated, but very much what I really enjoy about Tokusatsu.
Okay.
In this series.
Sam.
Compared with a bunch of the other giant robot movies or shows you've had me watch, this one is one of the better put together.
Okay.
I'm not questioning it as much as I do the others.
I think that's just you're getting used to the ridiculousness of Tokusatsu itself. But now you made a remark that because last week for you, 2 hours ago for us, we watched Johnny Sacco, and you made the remark that this kept your attention less than Johnny Sacco did.
I don't know if it was just because I've never been a big fan of Spider-Man to begin with.
Okay.
That's
So
fair.
I don't know if I'm just like, Spider-Man, moving on. Or if I'm just tired or what. But I was more involved with Johnny, even though I was not hating it, but not liking it either.
So it may just be a case of you're not a fan of Spider-Man in general, so even a different take on the character kind of colors your view of it a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fair enough, I think. For me, it's watching this and seeing where a lot of the tropes that we take for granted in Tokusatsu now started. Because there were no giant robots before Spider-Man. And a giant robot in a Tokusatsu show in this fashion, it was such a huge toy seller in 1978 that they didn't know what to do with themselves, and suddenly they're in everything. The monster designs are interesting. The foot soldiers, not so much.
Evil ducks.
Yeah,
Goose-stepping ducks.
Evil goose-stepping ducks. I believe their actual term is like niders or nidlers or something like that. I like evil goose-stepping ducks better. The main bad guy, Professor Monster.
Yeah, he didn't go to school long enough to be Dr. Monster, folks,
well,
unfortunately.
But, interesting look, interesting costume. There's a lot to this show that I actually kind of dig. And I've watched enough vintage Tokusatsu to know what I will not get. So, let's talk about what we liked. What did we dig out of Spider-Man, Toei's Spider-Man?
I like the practical web effects.
Yeah, a lot of them were.
Like the net was cool. And then I love one of my things I just laughed out loud is the first time he tries to use his spider string on the giant monster. And he hooks it, and he tries to pull against it. And then they cut to this shot of the monster taking this tiny Spider-Man and just whipping him around like a lawn ornament. It was amazing.
And whipping him right to the side of a mountain.
And which he immediately goes, well, that didn't work.
Oh, wait, I have a robot.
What?
How about you, Sam? Anything you really dug about these couple episodes?
just what I said before, that I wasn't questioning it as much. Like, I was actually able to enjoy the show for itself and instead of going, why are you doing that? Stop it! Except for the evil ducks. I'm just,
And all the... they had a lot of practical effects in the show, as you do in old 70s tokusatsu. There's a lot of practical climbing effects, a lot of practical green screen effects, and there were practical spiders, which
ooged out Sam to no end.
Yes.
He's like, squish it, squish it, squish it, squish it.
I think she's the only person that watches the second episode and cheered when Garya's spider form died.
the mentor died.
So-
He's dead, yes!
Because he took the form of a spider for the second half of episode 1 and all.
They used a
episode two.
real life spider.
Oh.
And they did close-ups of the real life spider. No.
Hopefully they had a stunt spider when it...
And it died when he picked it up and was holding it.
For myself, I love the stunt work on this, and that's one of the things that, as I understand, that even the folks at Marvel really praised the show for when it came out. The stunt work in this thing is phenomenal, to the point that I really wish that actors who played Spider-Man now would go back and look at the way this guy posed in costume as Spider-Man.
Yeah, sorry, that related subject back to what did I really enjoy about this?
Yes.
It was the guy in the costume. He was so enthusiastic.
Oh, yeah.
about it.
Oh, yeah.
He's just like, I am Spider-Man.
Yeah, but he was doing the poses and...
Yes.
You could tell that this guy looked at the source material. He looked at the comic book page and went, how does Spider-Man pose? How does he stand? How does he do this? And they worked so much of that into just the way he carries himself. There are elements of the way he stands and moves that are very much not Spider-Man. For instance, he's got the pose when he's on top of the building using this show's version of Spider-Sense, where he's just standing like this, and all broad-chested and chest thrown out and shoulders back, and in the typical heroic pose kind of thing that Spider-Man in the comics would never take because he's a teenager.
But also about the spider sense, it's even like it's better than the original Spider-Man spider sense, where original when Peter Parker's like he has a vague sense of something that's about to happen. Where this spider sense, he's like, it is a car 50 kilometers that way, moving thusly at 50 miles an hour.
Yeah.
That's got the bad guys. I gotta go there.
It's really interesting because they do take liberties with Spider-Man's powers here. He has the ability to stick to walls and climb. He has super strength. That is about the extent of his powers mirroring the Marvel Comics Spider-Man. He does have web shooters a la Peter Parker, though he only has the one. And it's outside of the costume. It's the big brace, which also holds the costume. It's how he changes.
Oh,
yeah.
And you see one zipper.
Yes. This is not a show where my phrase, don't look too close, or you'll see the zippers, can actually be held true, because they put the camera on the zipper for Spider-Man. But so he has the spider brace. They call the costume the Spider Protector, which I found kind of goofy, to be honest. But I guess it's to give you the sense that it's this alien armor, that it's not just a spandex suit. The various webbing that he can shoot out, though they never use the word webbing, but spider string, spider net, which are all really just white. Oh, it's a white net. It's a white woven rope. They do a couple of computer effects, but not much. It's animated effects. But it all looks really cool. But the spider sense, which they explain off in, I'm assuming in later episodes, it's not so much spider sense as it is he's psychic.
Yeah, because they would say, he can see the future.
Yeah. So this Spider-Man, his mental capabilities are, as far as like mental powers, far exceed Peter Parker's. But there were certain things from Spider-Man lore that they sneak in here, because we're not going to see much. None of Spider-Man's iconic villains are going to show up. We know that. Which, how do you feel about that? Because you are a comic book guy.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, knowing that this is Spider-Man, unashamedly so, I mean, whoa, yay.
Yeah,
but
I'm a little disappointed, to be honest, because, I mean, there are certain villains that would lend really well to this genre, especially like the Lizard. Oh, man, I'd love to see a Japanese Green Goblin.
That would be interesting.
That'd be interesting. Like a villain of the. I would actually like to see him as one of the main commanders of the bad guys.
I think like a tokusatsu version of Mysterio would be really
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Old fishbowl head.
But I mean, like I said, I'm a little bit disappointed, but I dig that they're trying to do their own thing.
Mhm.
And even the point, I mean, they got Stan the Man Lee's blessing on it, too.
Yeah, they did.
He watched it and thought it, I think you said he thought it was tremendous.
Stan Lee watched the show and apparently really dug it. So, how about you, Sam? Because you're not a big Spider-Man fan, but if it had more of what you would be familiar with from Spider-Man, would that make a difference?
I think I'm trying to think too deeply of it. I'm trying to figure, is this a different Spider-Man completely from our Peter Parker? Is it going on
Absolutely. I mean, he's
So
supposed to be a completely different character.
So why would he have the same villains as Peter Parker?
Why would he have the same costume as Peter Parker?
Be-
See, that's the trade-off, I think.
yeah.
Is we're trying to... It's Spider-Man. He's got that suit, but...
He's got the bracelet. That's...
Well, yeah, he's got a bracelet.
They did something different. I don't know. So I don't know. It's just kind of like when they do the multiple universes with the different superheroes and stuff, and it's like the...
Not to mention that, there was no mention of him getting bitten by a radioactive spider.
No, he had spider extract injected into his bloodstream.
So I guess I'm not too disappointed because I see it as a whole different... It's a different universe, so different stuff going on.
I'm about the same way. I think in my head it's easy enough for me to divorce Spider-Man from Marvel and to say that this is a tokusatsu, that this is, as it's said a lot of places, it's Toei's Spider-Man, not Marvel's Spider-Man. I think I'm able to make that distinction in my head, but there is that curiosity part of me that goes, wow, I'd really like to see Mysterio or the Lizard or the Shocker.
I guess just their take on it.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it was a monster of the week.
Do you think that maybe that's kind of like a just kind of a reference to it is a Marvel Comics character that he calls his vehicle the Marvel
It is most definitely. They've snuck that in a handful of places. Calling his vehicle the Marveler is one of them. That is his ship before it transforms into Leopardon. The most recent ode to Marvel Comics was in the 35th anniversary of Super Sentai Gokaiger. The captain's name is Captain Marvelous, which is a direct tribute to Marvel Comics. So yeah, I think that one's an obvious tip of the hat. I love that the love interest, female sidekick, I'm going to assume probably this show's version of Gwen Stacy or Mary Jane, is the photographer. So there is a freelance news photographer in the show. It's just not Spider-Man.
Oh, I'd like to see angry Japanese J. Jonah Jameson.
I'm hoping we get angry Japanese J. Jonah Jameson somewhere in here because that would be priceless.
Well, the editor of the picture place is the evil lady.
Yeah, actually, right.
Yeah.
So we have J. Jonah without the H, J. Jonah Jameson, and she's one of the bad guys. I love the bad guys in this show a lot because I do like the design of Professor Monster. It, on first blush, to me looking at it, it looks a lot like Doctor Doom.
Looks kind of a half a Doctor Doom.
Yeah, without the full face thing, right? Is there anything that you watch this and you just go, "Oh God, why have you done this to Spider-Man?"
The unnecessary backflips of the bad guys where it showed them at the end of a long hallway. Then they run a bit, and then they backflip backwards. And then they're closer, then they backflip backwards. I thought when the girlfriend was fleeing from, don't worry, just run faster than they are. They'll be moving away from you.
To be fair, that's a trope of early tokusatsu in general. So, if we ever sit down and introduce you to, Battle Fever J, or Go Ranger, or even some of the... I'll be shocked if it's not in Zubat somewhere. But it's a trope of early Toku to have the monsters or whoever run forward and then backflip. Or my favorite is when they'll jump in one place and cut, and they're now 30 feet closer to you, and they jump up, cut, and now they're 30 feet closer to you again.
See, that's more realistic though. They got superpowers, they're leaping after me. These guys are going backwards. And to clarify what the evil dogs are, these are the evil henchmen. They're in gray suits with caps, and they have an orange bill.
Yeah, they have beaks.
They have beaks.
which have like slits in them. I suspect. Here's the goofy thing. I've watched enough of these shows. I can tell you a practical reason to have it. It could just be a gas mask built into the costume. Because there's air slits in it, which are actually there so the stuntman can breathe, folks. But, I mean...
Oxygen is good.
Yeah. I guess for myself, what I don't necessarily care for is, and for some people this will be sacrilegious, I'm not a huge fan of Leopardon. It's not that there's a disconnect between Spider-Man has giant robot.
It's a lion robot.
Yeah, with spider armor.
I like Kana made the comment about, I think I've seen that before. And Mike's like, it's the first one. I'm like, well, yeah, in that case, then they just took the webs off of it and gave it to a Sentai team.
And for the record, folks, and I'm going to go ahead and say this because I don't want it to be a criticism later that we get lambasted for. I've already done the research on this. Leopardon's physical involvement in the show actually grows less and less and less as the series progresses. Some people credit that to the show having more human dramatic content as the series goes on. The reality is that the suit got damaged and then got lost or stolen. I don't know which one for certain. So they didn't actually have it for a large chunk of the series. So you basically get stock footage of Spider-Man in the cockpit saying, "Sword vigor," and it pulls out the sword and throws it, and that's the end of the fight. So that will happen. We're going to get some Power Rangers, like Season 2 stock footage fights here soon. And the other thing, which I found peculiar because I don't get it watching what we have seen on screen, but apparently the physical... Because this is the first giant robot they've done, right? The physical Leopardon costume and model were apparently so big that aside from being just hard to move in for the suit actor, they also apparently dwarfed the monster costumes. So you couldn't believably put the monster costume and Leopardon on screen simultaneously and think that the monster could beat him.
Oh, wow.
So, but, what we have seen... It's an interesting design and whatnot, but it just doesn't necessarily resonate for me. I think that's because I've seen more modern stuff.
And you were questioning the throwing of the sword.
Yeah, I immediately questioned throwing of the sword, because that's not how swords work. That's how knives work, but not swords. So, and I'm trying to think, there was something else about it that struck me as either odd or I didn't care for, and I don't remember what it was, so if I remember, we'll come back to it.
Oh, wait, there was one little thing I liked was in Garia's story. They actually, the first time that Professor Monster and Garia fight is in feudal Japan.
Yeah.
Where you see Samurai, and then you see him go G7, and you see, like, the space Corvette drive up in the middle of, like, a samurai battle.
Yes, the Spider Machine GP7, which... is in a long line of ridiculous-looking tokusatsu cars. It is not Zubat, even though it's a great show with the most epic of all the badass heroes as its lead. Hiroshi Miyuchi is awesome, but yeah, it's interesting to see that the Spider Machine on screen. So closing thoughts and what we might look forward to in Toei's Spider-Man, because I suspect there will be more of this in our future. So, if nothing else, it's going to replace Giant Robo in the lineup for me. And
I know, and that is a selling point of this.
Is once we get done with Johnny Sacco, we move on to Spider-Man.
I know. I mean, I like Johnny Sacco, but I need a palate cleanser, folks. And this is like, Spider-Man, giant robot and Spider-Man. I'm okay with it. But I really want to look forward to. I mean, I just want to see more of this suit actor just riffing on his thing.
Yeah.
Doing flips and climbing buildings and stuff.
I mean, this is his suit acting. They should have handed this TV show or like episodes of it to Tobey Maguire's suit actor for the original Spider-Man movies, that trilogy, or even Andrew Garfield's suit actor. The guy they've got for the MCU movies actually is really good in suit as Spider-Man, but like the other two, I kind of looked at it as like, I don't get it. But this guy, when he's in the costume, is like, oh, holy crap, that's Spider-Man. So,
he becomes Spider-Man.
He is the Spider-Man.
Anything you would look forward to in watching more of this? Should you watch more of this? for the record, we don't make everybody watch every show because we know there are some shows that some people just don't care for. Like, we'll never bring Dave back for Johnny Sacco, and you're welcome. So,
no, we're gonna torture him with Dragon Ball Z Abridged.
Yeah, look for that on a future episode of 8-Star Anime.
Eventually, don't know when yet. I'm hoping if I see more of it that I will still enjoy it and not question it. Just be like, oh, cool, yep, going with that. Instead of going, why? Just why?
I look forward to seeing how much more of what I recognize of modern tokusatsu is actually in this show. Because another thing that is a thing that's just, it happens now, and we take it for granted, but starts in this show, like the giant robot, is the dramatic pose and roll call. Did not start before Spider-Man. Spider-Man, where he strikes the pose and introduces himself, the emissary of hell, Spider-Man. That's the first roll call in tokusatsu history. Even before Go Ranger did not have that same style of dramatic roll call. Kamen Rider didn't have it. Ultraman never had it. Ultraman doesn't talk, for the most part. No Toku hero had that before Spider-Man as a regular part of the character. So I'm looking forward to seeing what else might happen. We have not seen any of the insular or other bad guy characters yet. We've seen the commander, the big bad in Professor Monster, and we've seen his lieutenant. But usually there's more than that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of cast perhaps is around them as villain faction, because one thing about early tokusatsu is it's usually driven by the villain more than the hero. The hero a lot of times will remain a static character for the entire series, and the villains are what drive the story. I'm looking to see if that's the case here. Because here's what you can pretty much count on not getting. There will probably not be a meta plot, because there rarely is on these older shows. You can count on forgetting what happened yesterday outside of an origin story. You can count on there not being a whole lot of growth of your central characters. And what you see in episodes 1 and 2, like the first 5 episodes, is pretty much what you're going to have for the whole show. But you can also usually count on some badass bad guys at some point that are going to be really, really cool. Josh and I have had good luck watching old Toku shows with characters revolving spiders. So, and the one other thing. When you're watching this, keep in mind that the guy who plays Spider-Man, who's, I think it's Shinji Nido, I think is the actor's name. This is the only hero role he ever played in a Toku show, even though he was in other Toku shows.
Really?
Yes, this is his one and only time as the hero. His next appearance in a tokusatsu show, he was in the Super Sentai series Denzicaster, and he was a bad guy general. So he goes from being, and he was the one in the ridiculous looking armor. Now you liked Garya's armor though, with like the fins coming off the helmet.
He looked like a metal Vaporeon. He did, and then the rest of his costume was a Roman gladiator.
And this is the day, folks. If you have been waiting for the day that somehow Pokemon found its way to Denzicaster, here it is.
Garya,
You're
I
welcome.
choose you!
Oh, well, no, because, with Johnny Sacco and the robot or whatever, the first Pokemon battle where the...
Yeah, but I didn't mention that on the show.
Okay.
But we did joke around that with the 2 kids commanding the 2 giant robots, we're like, and this is where the first Pokemon battle in history took place.
Just turn and punch the other kid. Control the robot.
So, folks, I think that pretty much wraps it up for our look at the first couple episodes of Spider-Man, and I feel fairly safe saying it will not be the last time we take a look at Spider-Man. Maybe the last time for a while, because at least if this winds up being a show that's just a me and Josh thing, we're going to blast through the rest of Johnny Sacco first.
I mean, we're not that far off anyways, as is.
No, I think for those playing the home game, we're actually almost to the end of Disc 3. So if you're following us and you love us talking about Johnny Sacco so that you can troll us later, we've got 1, 2, 3. We've only got 4 more episodes of this show for Johnny Sacco. There's 8 episodes left in the series. So 4 more Johnny Sacco sessions, Josh, and we are done with our giant robo fix.
The impossible dream.
But Spider-Man will take over that spot in the for us anyway, I think. But don't worry, we still are checking out Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. As long as Sam is here, that's going to happen. Live Man, the only reason we haven't watched any during this taping is because Will couldn't make it. because we got to get some of our F Your Biomotion Buster in somewhere, and so we got to have Will for that. Preferably Will and Sam, because that's when it gets just great.
Wait, is Live Man the one with the dolphin and the lion?
Yes.
And they use the same move over? Okay.
The cannon, yeah.
We have a T-shirt. If it's not already on the Cafe Press store, it's coming soon. It says hashtag FYBMB, F Your Biomotion Buster. So feel free to grab that. And any of our other great shirts, such as the Space Sheriff style shirt that I'm wearing here. We got them up there for Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon. There's one of those that eventually Sam will get.
Eventually.
So
my last day on the show, I'll wear it.
So in other words, folks, I'm not counting on that one getting sold to her anytime soon. Because I hope she will be around for a while. And we hope you'll be around for a while, too. Check us out on Cafe Press, cafepress.com/Geek Carolina. You can find us on Facebook at Denzicaster, and on Twitter, Periscope, and Instagram, we are at Geek Carolina. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. But either way, let us know why. Give us your comments in the comments down below. We'd appreciate it. And who knows, when you give us your comments, it gives us stuff to talk about on the air.
That's right.
Last week, we had a couple of viewers who gave us some cool input and feedback on Johnny Sacco. Maybe you guys have the same for Spider-Man out there. So, folks, until next time, I'm Mike.
I'm Josh.
See you.
And we will see you next time here on Denzicaster. Yeah. Okay, folks, I could be really, really smooth and say that we planned for this to be after the closing credits, but I'm not that good. We actually forgot to do it during the show, but maybe it's better that we do it after the closing credits, because we promised we were going to try some Japanese-style peanut
Because
mochi.
if this is as chewy as I suspect it is, if we did this during the show, we'd be the whole like, well, I'm Spider-Man, and it's really good. And
So, let's see here. This, by the way, if you would like to try finding this at your own local market, this is Japanese-style peanut mochi from Yuki in Love. Let's see here. Manufactured for and distributed by Walong Marketing Incorporated in Taiwan. Distributed through Buena Park, California. Okay. Apparently, a serving size is 1 piece. Just to make sure we don't run into any food allergies here. Peanut paste. Apparently not peanut butter. Peanut paste.
Lies.
nice.
Glutinous rice flour.
Oh, you don't say.
Contains peanut and soybean product. Okay. So it comes sealed in this wonderful container here. By the way, the inspiration for me doing this comes from a wonderful YouTube channel, which I highly encourage you guys to check out, called Critical Eats Japan, where the host of the channel eats... Wow, that smells peanut buttery off the get.
Wow, those are like ginormous
Like
Reese's cups.
I like peanut butter.
So he...
They look dusty too.
yeah, but he...
But not like dusty as in dust. Dusty as like peanut dust, yeah.
So he does this show called Critical Eats Japan, where he goes to various fast food places in Japan, but that are typical American names for the most part. So he goes like KFC and Burger King, McDonald's, things like that, and occasionally some that are specific to Japan, I assume, like Lateria and a few others. And he also has a sub-series called Combini Quest, where he goes and picks up strange chips, drinks, and other snacks from various convenience stores, Combinis, in Japan, and tries those. So this is our tribute to Critical Eats Japan. So whoever wants to grab one first, we will all...
Ladies first.
We will all try it at the same time.
Yep.
Wow, those are dusty. So...
Peanut butter.
So... ladies and gentlemen...
Would anyone like to dink before we eat?
Yeah.
Right. Dink.
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 All right.
Dink, dink. Right then.
As I suspected, very chewy.
So, I'm definitely getting the glutinous rice bit.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm actually surprised by the blandness of the mochi.
well, mochi to me has always been one of those things that it takes on other flavors well. So it's good as a transport. I'm thinking Sam's not digging this.
I haven't even gotten to the fake peanut butter yet.
Let's see.
The peanut butter.
It's,
show you.
It's
Has, and I'm gonna hold this up to the camera. So this has a very.
No.
I don't like. However, it's interesting that you mentioned that the mochi carries on the quality of the peanut butter. In this case, and not in a good way, I don't think. The peanut butter's taking the quality of the mochi.
Like, the peanut butter has no taste, really. It's got the texture.
It's kind of viscous. And that's not usually something you want to use to describe peanut butter.
Peanut paste. Peanut paste.
So that tracks, yeah.
Alright, thank you. But
I'll finish it, but...
you're doing better than me.